Alright, Super 7, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Leonardo. You get a brown shipper box to start. This is pretty much the same as Raphael's. You get the classic logo, the name Leonardo, Super 7 branding on the bottom, and a little bit of information on the back. Let's take a look at the inside. Alright, once you slide that off, you got his little box here. Box within a box, I should say. You got a picture of Leonardo on the front with some katana blade handles right there. So you know it's Leonardo. He's got that classic Playmates-inspired expression on his face with the classic logo on the back. I believe this just slides right up and over. Gets us our first look at Leonardo himself. Yeah, not bad, huh? The back of the package, you get a whole little bio for Leonardo with Super 7, Nickelodeon, all the logos and everything. Really cool packaging. I do always like what Super 7 does with these Ultimates, but let's get him open. Alright, so here he is out of package. The first thing you're going to notice is how similar he is to Raphael in terms of his body type, his articulation, all that. I believe they're pretty much the exact same mold with a different head and some different accessories. Obviously, Leonardo's color scheme is much different than Raphael's because it's meant to emulate the original Playmates figure, which I actually have one of the many reproductions right here. You can see that it matches the like the olive green color of the skin, and the bright blue really pops against it too. And it actually, in fact, has the exact same belt with the two cross straps in the front, and the little sheath scabbard things on his back. I guess they're not technically sheaths, but they're just openings where you can store his two swords, which we'll get to. But yeah, very similar to the old one, very cool, right on down to the head sculpt. So here's a close-up of the head sculpt, and he's got a little bit of the same kind of thing going as Raphael had with like the texturing on the mask, but I don't think he has quite as much. I believe Raphael had maybe a little bit more of the texturing going on with his bandana, and I think Raphael also had more detail. If you look at the teeth, Leonardo's are all painted white, but I think Raphael had, I want to say it was probably just green, like the same color as his green skin, like just to kind of like separate the teeth out a little bit. I'd have to see them side by side to figure out which one I like better, so I don't know, can't really say too much about that right now, but you can see that the expression on the face is very, very similar to the Playmates one. Although I will say the Playmates guy looks a little more sad. I don't know why, but yeah, okay, very similar to what I was just saying. Playmates one also has the green separation in between the teeth mold too, so it's just something worth noting. I do like the bandana as a softer plastic on the back, which always nice. So getting a look at some of the detail on the front part of the figure, like I guess the front part of his shell, his chest, his torso area, you can see that the belt is really well done. The silver pieces of the belt where like the straps connect and the belt buckle itself are actually painted a brighter silver than Raphael's. Raphael's I think was more of a darker gunmetal gray. I did have a little issue with a small bit of red paint on Raphael's belt, and Leonardo is similar because the paint, the yellow from the L initial, kind of bled onto the circle black part there a little bit. Not a huge deal, it's an easy fix, but just something worth pointing out. What I do like is the texturing on the belt. It actually looks like it's like leather strapping. I think this is all just one piece, so I don't think it's two separate straps. It doesn't seem like it comes apart, so I think it is one piece. The texturing on the belt goes the entire way around the back of the belt as well, which is really awesome. You got the texturing on the front of the shell too, a little bit of like Nick's battle damage from various fights he's probably gotten into over the years. Maybe some of which even happen to be with Raphael, who knows. So if you look at the back of the shell, you got some slice marks and battle damage. I really think that's very well done. The detail is really great, honestly, now that I'm looking at this kind of up close. You got the slash marks in there, you got the almost fingerprint like designs, I guess, on the back of the shell. You also got the straps that come down from the front. Now on the original figure, you'll see they kind of like plug in, so that way you can like remove the belt if you wanted to, and the whole thing just comes off. This I don't think is intended to do that, but it's intended to look similar to the old figure, which is nice. As well as the two areas where he stores his two swords, which we'll go over. Something else I wanted to point out was the alternate head. Now, I really like this. It's a very stern expression, very cool, very stylized. Definitely something that's going to give your turtles a bit more of a differentiation between the kind of more traditional Playmates look and, you know, maybe a modern collectible that you might want to see today on your shelf. I maintain that these head sculpts look very similar to the early IDW comics art, so I think that's cool if that's something that you're interested in. Also, the headband is like longer and, you know, still soft and easy to manipulate, so I think that works. So you can see what I mean. Here's the first issue of the IDW book, and I think if you kind of look at these profiles, they look very, very similar. Right down to the scowl and the lines in the cheeks and everything. Really cool. This is actually the first issue of the comic, so at this point, for a little while, they're going to be wearing all red, just like the original Mirage comics. But they do eventually get their kind of more classic colors, so if you wanted an IDW TMNT group, this is not a bad way to go about that. It's not exact, but it's not bad either. So now that I got the classic Playmates head back on him, articulation wise, he's very similar to Raphael. So you're gonna get a little twist in the head, a little bit of tilt side to side, like not too much, but not too bad. Not a whole lot of looking down in front, as you'll see, but he does get a pretty decent range upward. So it's about the same as Raphael was. At the shoulders, you're gonna get just about 90 degrees like that with a bicep swivel. That works pretty well. A single jointed elbow, which, I mean, it's not great, but what are you gonna do? A swivel at the wrist, and these are the wrists that hinge up and down. These two come on Leonardo, so he does have extra hands, so they won't all hinge up and down. Some will hinge in and out, as we'll go over. But yeah, that's the arm. At the shoulder, you're going to get a full rotation, get his arm up over his head, no problem. Goes the whole way back and around. Very nice. The legs, once again, very similar to Raphael. He's got a joint like built up inside of his shell that kind of allows for you to pivot like that, and his hips effectively will kick side to side. So you get some hip movement out of him like that. You do actually get him to do full split, no problem there. He's got, as you'll see, ball joints that have a hinge built into them. So yeah, leg articulation is not bad. You'll get him about this far forward, which is not bad. He does tend to like split apart at the legs just because of the way the shell is built. If you do want to get him back, it's gonna be about that far back. You can probably manipulate it. Actually, yeah, you can definitely manipulate it farther, but just be aware that the shell will kind of send his leg kicking outward, which, I mean, if you're getting him in ninja kick poses, that might not be so bad. I will say these hip joints that kind of peg into the crotch area seem a little bit, I don't want to say brittle, but they're just small joints. So just be aware of that. Be careful when you're posing your figure. You do get a very nice thigh swivel as well. I do like that they engineered it way up here at the hip as opposed to like cutting an ugly line right through here. So you get that full range of articulation, and I'm noticing there's a lot of paint shading in here as well with the musculature. I should have actually mentioned that with the whole body. He's painted really, really well. A lot of detail work is done in there, so I like that a lot. Once again, like Raphael, you're only getting a single joint at the knee, which kind of a bummer. Gives you about 90 degrees, but the ankle will give you a lot more than that. So you'll get him to hinge all the way back, all the way forward, as well as a really great ankle rocker joint for pretty much insane range of motion, actually. So yeah, not a ton in the knees or the elbows, but as far as the hips and the ankles, you're not going to have any issues posing. So I got one of his additional hands swapped on. It was easy. You just pull the old one off, pop the new one on, and you're good to go. These hinges all work pretty well on Leonardo, which is nice. I will point out there's actually another bit of articulation I forgot to mention. It's actually at the elbow. You get a little twist on the inside, so you get that swivel there that's gonna enable you to get a little bit more movement out of it, which is nice. And he does have the same at the leg, at the knee, which you're gonna actually be able to get a pretty decent twist on, so that'll help out your articulation pretty good. Leonardo also comes packed with his two katana blades, and I gotta say, these are probably the closest to actual katanas that I've seen any of these Leonardo toys come with. Typically speaking, he kind of has the more straight bladed, like Ninjato or Ninjakin blades, which aren't technically katanas, but you know, we're Westerners, what do we know? But I will say that this actually works really well, and I like the way that they added the curvature to it while still maintaining kind of the aesthetic of the original toy. It's very nice. I will say I would have liked to see maybe a little bit more like shinier versions of these, kind of similar to how Raphael came with like duller and shinier size in addition to like kind of the standard brown ones that are on the weapons rack. But an extra pair of swords wouldn't have hurt Leonardo, but that said, the ones that he does come with are really nice, so I can definitely dig this. And here you can see they store really easily on the back. I actually like what they did here. You might even be able to see there's a little extra piece of rubber on one of the sheath things, so that way one sword is constantly raised above the other one. You're not trying to shove them both into like the exact same space, and you won't wind up bending your sword blades. So that's really cool. And I think he looks good from the front with these as well. He can easily just reach over his shoulder and grab a sword, start hacking at the foot. Obviously, Super7 comes in with a lot of accessories as well. Here he's got the slice of pizza. I think it's the same slice as Raphael had. He's actually got a pair of fists as well, which I think are sculpted quite nicely. Raphael didn't actually have fists, which I don't know why he didn't. I mean, I get that he had the open fingers for manipulating his sides, but yeah, it would have been nice to at least have the option. Leonardo also has another set of gripping hands. These are the ones that hinge kind of like in and out as opposed to like up and down, which is the ones that are on the figure currently. And as well as these like open hand at the ready martial arts gripping kind of hands. I do like that the fingernails are painted like a different color than the skin. Just brings it out a little bit. And I will say, off camera, I was like messing with the hinges and stuff on all these, and they do feel like they're all fine. I know with Raphael, I had one or two of the hands that had kind of felt like they maybe got stuck, but Leonardo's out of box, we're all good. We also get two of these ninja stars, very similar to the ones Raphael came with. You get these two daggers, again, very similar, as well as this Kama, which I maintain is still the best extra weapon that you could ever give one of your old Turtles figures, because you could tie a string from one high place to a low place and send them right on down into battle. What I will say is that the coloring is slightly different than Raphael's version. You can see here Leonardo's kind of a more classic brown, while Raphael's is more of like an orangish, like reddish brown. Just something worth noting, and the same applies to these handles as well. Lastly, you've got your two turtle communicators. You got one closed and one open, and Raphael's, once again, slightly different. You can see the antennas are painted differently, as well as the color scheme of the entire thing is, yeah, it's completely different. So I do like that even though it's the same accessory, you can tell whose is whose, and I honestly think that it's a really cool extra little accessory. And looks like Leonardo's got some extra paint on the backside of his as well. So yeah, that's kind of a cool, fun little thing that worth mentioning. I like that they did that. And just like Raphael, you also get the unpainted weapons rack, which comes with all the weapons you've seen already, just in the original kind of tan color scheme that all the old TMNT figures from Playmates used to have. And because of the way it was packaged, it's all bent to hell, just like the old Playmates figures. So yeah, if you want to relive the glory days of trying to straighten your weapons out and pop them off this rack without messing anything up, go right ahead. I will probably just leave this alone, but it is a cool little accessory and it does not go unappreciated. So here are the two brothers that we have so far, Leonardo and Raphael. Raphael came out a couple months ago as I record this, and Leonardo I just got today. So I've had time to mess with Raphael a little bit, and I gotta say, Leonardo is an excellent addition to the line. I did point out those couple differences. For example, as you can see now, I was right about Raphael having a little bit more paint work in the teeth. I don't know if that makes him better or worse, because it is just straight green paint, and I don't know why that makes any sense. But because this is kind of a nostalgic Playmates head, I like it, and I think I kind of prefer it to what they did with Leonardo, even though Leonardo's looks a little bit more realistic. Something else I didn't notice, but it looks like the shells are the same. Like if you look at the scratch marks on Leonardo's back, you might be able to see over his swords there. It looks like Raphael has the same scratches, but what I didn't realize is the shells were actually different colors. Now the original Playmates, I don't think they were different colors. I'm pretty sure they were all kind of the same, more similar to what Leonardo has here. But yeah, just something worth noting. I do think they look great together. They're definitely like a really awesome looking like remaster of the original Playmates figures. And yeah, I gotta hand it to Super7. I'm really enjoying these. Here they are with the alternate heads, about to go into battle. I gotta say, when I first got Raphael, I was impressed, but I didn't necessarily think I was blown away. Like, I knew he was a very good figure, but I wouldn't have put him on the pedestal of, like, great. But now that I've got Leonardo, I get the feeling these figures are gonna be like a sleeper. Like, when you get one, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, that's cool. But then when you get two, you're gonna be like, all right, we're getting there now. And then as Michelangelo and Donatello eventually come out, by the time you get all four, you're probably gonna be in love with this set. So some other figures to compare him to. Here's Leonardo from the Mirage Comics series from NECA from 2008, I want to say. That's the Playmates version that we showed earlier for comparison. This is one of the many reproductions that have come out over the years. And here's NECA's cartoon Leonardo from the Target 2-packs. It'll be the same one as the San Diego Comic-Con box set. And obviously there's also the repaint of this figure in the brighter green promotional colors. And here's how he stacks with them. Couple more. Here's the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie Leonardo from NECA. There is the Playmates Classics cartoon collection from 2012, I want to say, and they're actually very comparable in terms of their height and kind of their proportions and everything. So if you have this guy in your collection, you basically have an idea of the size and scale of the Super7. And lastly, you've got the Leonardo from the Rebel Tech 2012 show. So yeah, that's how he scales up with different versions of Leonardo. Obviously, he's taller than some, shorter than others, but you know, scale-wise, these turtle figures have always kind of been all over the place. Super7's doing their own thing entirely, so I think you can make this work. So for me, Super7 begins and ends with the 4 turtles. I'm not doing the whole line just down to budget and space and all that. But you can see here that the Super7 turtles don't look totally out of place with the NECA villains from the cartoon. Here's a Foot Soldier, here's a Roadkill Rodney, and Shredder, and I think this scaling still works okay. Like, Obviously he's going to be a little bit too tall to be like cartoon accurate, but I don't have a problem with this. I think this looks pretty good. So here he is with the NECA version of Bebop and Rocksteady, and obviously I think the Super 7 versions of Bebop and Rocksteady are going to be much larger than the NECA versions, just down to the scale that they're doing. But if you're just collecting these turtles and you have the NECA versions already, I still think this works. Looks pretty imposing, and these guys look like a threat. Also wanted to shout out a guy named DoesMachines84 on Instagram. I got the Bebop drill gun and the Rocksteady helmet from him some time ago. He does some custom stuff. Well worth a follow. Check it out. And here he is scaled in with some of NECA's even bigger figures. Some of the deluxe ones, just some of the bigger ones from the 2-packs. I think the Super 7 Turtles mix pretty well with these guys. So you got the Android Krang deluxe figure, you got the Metalhead deluxe figure, you've got Xerix from the Triceraton 2-pack, and you've got Granitor from the Rock Soldier 2-pack. And you can see all these guys basically dwarf Leonardo in terms of his size. So I'm pretty satisfied with this. I'm totally cool with just using the 4 Super 7 Turtles in with some of my NECA villains, just because, like I say, space and cost and everything is kind of keeping me apart from the entire Super 7 line. I will say they all look awesome. It's just, I can't do it. That's just, I just can't do it. So just in case you're wondering, here he is scaled with some of NECA's movie villains and Splinter, I guess, as well. Gonna be probably a little bit of a hard sell on this. I think the aesthetic differences are a little bit too great to try and fudge these two lines together. Honestly, if you're looking strictly at scale and nothing else, this is pretty good. And here he is with Vader. So overall, my final thoughts. I really like this Leonardo a lot. I think he fits in really well with Raphael, and the rest of the Super 7 line looks great, and I think that they're stylistically a very cool group of figures. I actually kind of prefer this Leonardo to Raphael, just down to a few little QC things. I think Super 7 may have taken a little extra time now that this is their second turtle. They've kind of fixed maybe some of the minor little things that I had I don't want to say that I griped about with Raphael, but just little things that I maybe would have changed. I think as far as accessories and everything, Leonardo is definitely really good, worth your money. His hands and heads swap on a little bit easier for me than Raphael's did, which is another additional bonus. Like, just, I don't know, the ease of being able to pop his head on and off to switch out with the alternate and stuff. Really cool. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm just buying the 4 Turtles from Super 7, but I'm happy with the 2 that are out so far. I believe next up is Michelangelo in a couple months, and then after that will be Donatello a few months from that. I think these turtles are going to be kind of like what I said before, where like the more of them you get, the more you're going to like them. So, as I mentioned, when I first got Raphael, I'm like, yeah, okay, pretty good. And now that I have Leonardo, Raphael has like improved substantially in my book, and I get the feeling that when Michelangelo and Donatello come out, I'm going to like these 2 even more than I presently do. Now, as I've said, these are basically like Super 7 remastering old 80s Ninja Turtles figures by just adding articulation and sculpt work and everything to kind of mimic the aesthetic of the old ones while making them accessible for a modern day figure collector. They're going to run you at retail about $45 a piece. For that price, I think they're worth it. Any more than that, you might be pushing it. I know the secondary market goes a little crazy with these after release, so just be aware. If that's what you want to do, go for it. I do recommend the figure though. I like it a lot. If I can leave you with this, I think these are turtly awesome.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Anyway, my name is Captain McKay. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to check out the Raphael review, it's on the screen now, as well as a which TMNT figures are best video that I made some time ago. Alright, we'll catch you in the next one. Later on.
That's crispy.